What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? It's bright and early when you're watching this. I'm recording this on, what is it, Wednesday. I think you're going to be watching it Thursday morning, though. A lot of you have been asking, what do I think about this Stephen Smith news and what's going on with the Murdaugh family saga that just seems to continue? And I wanted to get as much information in one video as I could. I wanted to hear from the people involved. So we're going to hear from Stephen Smith's mother. We're going to hear from the lawyers of the family, what they're doing, why they're doing it. Some people have heard that a GoFundMe or something like that has been started to exhume his body and do the autopsy. And the goal has been blown away. And I think over $60,000 have been donated. The lawyers have assured us that this is going to go to cost. It's not going to them. Which I think is the right thing to do. And I'm glad they mentioned it, even though that's what I would expect from this firm. Ronnie Richter is one of the lawyers from this firm. I was on some shows and videos with him during the Murdaugh trial. Seems like a really great guy, and he's a stick. He's a great golfer. So one day I may golf with him. We were texting about it a little bit afterwards. But he seems like an awesome guy, and his firm is handling this with Eric Bland as well. That's his partner. Some of you may have seen him on some other shows as well. So we're going to listen to what they have to say, what the victim's mother has to say, and what the latest update is with Stephen Smith, whose death has now been ruled a homicide. Will this connect to the Murdaugh family? Because just because it's a homicide does not mean, as crazy as this may seem, just because it's a homicide doesn't mean it necessarily involves the Murdaugh family. But Buster Murdaugh, who many think could be implicated in this crime, does eventually respond. So we will get to his response and his quote after we watch this video together. If you're still interested in this content or are interested in this new aspect of the Murdaugh content, hit that like button, please, and subscribe to our page if you haven't already. Let's get to this video here. It's kind of an interview style with this is Stephen Smith's mom and the attorneys.
I love my son, and since I couldn't protect him, I'm going to fight for him.
Nearly 8 years after Stephen Smith was found dead in the middle of a Hampton County road, his mother, Sandy, wants an independent autopsy conducted to find out how her son died.
I want to thank everyone who's donated and supported us from the beginning, but I hope to find the real reason for Stephen's death.
Sandy Smith enlisting the help of a new legal team to ask a judge to exhume Stephen's body.
We're going to hire experts who are going to come into this case.
So a couple things. Number one, they're doing this and they want an independent autopsy, meaning someone that is not at all connected with anybody that's connected with the Murdaughs. And number two, she found a legal team to help her with this. And who is this legal team? But the same legal team that represented other victims, the Satterfield family that Alec Murdaugh stole from. I'd be willing to bet she learned of this firm and found this firm from the Murdaugh case. They were all over, tons of different shows, tons of different videos, getting their names and faces out there. So anybody that's got an issue with the Murdaughs, this law firm knows the Murdaugh family, knows where to attack, knows what money is there potentially, knows how to get it potentially, and knows all the players in South Carolina. And that is where she went, and hopefully they can help her.
With a fresh set of eyes, with an open mind. This is not a Alex Murdaugh 2.0 or any Murdaugh 2.0. This is a Stephen Smith 2.0. It's all about Stephen.
I love that. I love that. I have not watched this interviews. This is the first time watching. This is Eric Bland, one of the attorneys there with Ronnie. That is the proper and perfect and great start. Now, some people have had some problems with what he said on Twitter and whatever. If people want to argue about that, that's fine, whatever. And I guess I was talking about some things on Twitter with Rob, and I think this is who may have been implicated in that discussion. I have no idea, but he said it the right way. This is not a Murdaugh 2.0. This may have nothing to do with the Murdaughs. If the evidence points towards the Murdaughs, they're not going to be afraid to go after him, but this is about Stephen Smith. So I like how he said that.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and walked in and out of a hit and run. Debris in the road. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division opened an investigation into Stephen's death following the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. A SLED spokesperson said at the time that information had come to light during that investigation that led them to open an investigation into Stephen's death. Last week, Sandy Smith started a GoFundMe page asking to raise $15,000 for an exhumation and independent autopsy. That page has now raised more than $65,000. Sandy Smith has retained attorneys Eric Bland and Ronnie Richter to help her start the investigation into Stephen's death from square one.
We think a lot of the pre-death communications can be relevant. We also think that post-death communications on different people could yield some information. One of the things that we can do is start a civil suit to look at the cause of death, which would give us subpoena power as well as discovery rights under the South Carolina rules of
Civil suit against who?
civil procedure.
And joining me to discuss the latest developments
We've
is
talked
Sandy
about subpoena power and things like that when you get something into litigation, but I'm interested, who are they going to start a civil suit against?
Smith. She, of course, is the mother of Stephen Smith, and her new attorney, Ronnie Richter, who will now be representing Sandy Smith moving forward, along with his partner, Eric Bland. So Ronnie and Sandy, welcome to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sandy, I want to start with you. I've talked to you on the phone, and I can't imagine, I can only imagine as a mom what this has been like over the last many years, almost 8 years now. Talk to me about your son. I want to hear from you about him.
He was a wonderful, amazing son. He was very intelligent, spontaneous. He was like my world. And yeah, he loved books, he loved school, and he loved his family.
And at the time of his death, he was studying to be a nurse and apparently also wanted to be a doctor.
Yes. He was going to start at the bottom and work his way up.
He was a twin, and I know twins are often very special. I'm sure this has been devastating for his sister because twins often have that special connection.
Absolutely. But she's maintaining good. She's doing great.
You've been represented by a few attorneys now. Obviously, you've moved in a different direction, retaining Eric and Ronnie. So what are you hoping to achieve by retaining them?
I'm hoping to achieve the truth about what happened to my son.
And Ronnie, let's talk a little bit about that process. You guys are going to petition the court for an exhumation. How challenging do you think it will be to get that court order?
Well, it's not something that happens very often, right? So we have to show that we have good cause for it. And I think that we do in this circumstance. I think when you lay out all the facts around Stephen's death, there are more questions than answers. And the conclusion that was reached, if you ask us, it just doesn't match with the physical evidence of the scene. If you got,
I'd be willing to bet they're going to talk about connections with and shortcomings of law enforcement in the area and investigations that they know about that they did not do a good enough job, whether it's a cover up or whether it's negligence. I'd be willing to bet that's going to be part of the discussion in court with being able to take this. And this is a big step. This is not something that's done lightly. We can't just go digging up bodies. It's got to only be done when good cause is shown, like he's explaining here. But I think they're going to have good cause in this case.
a victim in the middle of a roadway, the conclusion is it was a vehicular hit and run, and yet there's no vehicular debris of any kind whatsoever. His shoes are still on his feet. If his car did in fact break down miles down the road, he had a cell phone with him the entire time. So it makes no sense. It appears to us as if he was killed elsewhere and that his body was deposited in the roadway.
And I think that's one of the most curious things, the fact that he did have a cell phone on him. And had he run out of gas, he probably would have called Sandy. Do you believe that's what he would have done? Called someone for help, saying, hey, I ran out of gas. Do you believe he would have just walked toward your home?
No, he wouldn't have walked. He would have called his twin sister, who was closer to where his body was found in his car. He would have called her, and she would have come and got him. She had waited
Again,
up.
very plausible. Makes a lot of sense. The story that was told about him, on the other hand, makes a lot less sense than this.
For him all night, waiting on a call, but she never got one.
And why was that? Did she, just because he hadn't come home, or?
Right, because he left and he didn't say where he was going, and he would have been home early enough to go to bed because he had to get up at 6 a.m. to go to school the next day.
Sandy, obviously, Stephen was openly gay. Did he ever feel any animus in the community? Because we've heard that was something that might be frowned upon in the Hampton County area. Did he ever feel that way? Did he feel like anybody mistreated him because of that?
No, he got picked on at school a little bit, but that's bullying to me. But he never let stuff bother him. He said, I am who I am.
Ronnie, Sandy launched this GoFundMe last week, and she's already exceeded her goal of now it's more than 60,000. I think the original goal was around 15. You guys said that you would be hiring investigators, pathologists. So talk to me a little bit about how that is going to work and how you ensure you get the right people, that people that are grade A.
Yeah, so there are people that do this, obviously, and thanks to the folks who donated to the GoFundMe page, we're not limited to just the local talent in the state, and so we are going to be looking on a broader scale to find those folks.
This is how they explained it here on the screen. And again, it's not just going to go for the autopsy or exhuming the body, but they're going to get to have all kinds of experts now. And you hear $70,000, it sounds like a lot of money. You also heard in the Johnny Depp trial and the Alec Murdaugh trial how expensive experts can be. So I don't think they're going to have trouble spending this $70,000 trying to fight this case.
Who are involved in cold cases, who have done exhumations before, who are skilled in examining a body as old as Stephen's to see if they can find out new information about the cause of death. So that's,
and it's not just going to be that. It's going to be accident reconstructionists, potentially biomechanical experts, not just going to be pathologists and people dealing with the autopsy
process. Now, locally, yes. I mean, the boots on the ground investigators, there's plenty of those, lots of skilled people in South Carolina. There's folks forensically who can help us examine all the electronic information from his cell phone and other devices. So it's going to be a full team approach. We need electronic forensics. We need boots on the ground investigators. But most importantly, we need that key component of someone of national reputation who has done exhumations before, who could do a pathology on an 8-year-old body now and tell us hopefully new information that we didn't know before.
I'm wondering also, Ronnie, I'm assuming you'll be soliciting information from the public. Any tips? Is there a way that people can submit information to your office?
Yeah, so I'm Ronnie at blandrichter.com. Eric is Eric Bland at blandrichter.com. You can call the office 843-573-9900. We are absolutely enlisting the aid of the public here because we know that folks out there know something about what happened.
And how tough that is 8 years later to get this information. And they're going to do the best they can, but it's really hard to get information that's going to be reliable 8 years later.
This couldn't have happened in silence. So even if somebody did strike him with a vehicle and then move on, somebody left the body behind and didn't render aid. And that in itself is a pretty serious crime. So we just want answers. We met Sandy through the Satterfield case. And so we've come to know her over the years, and our hearts have always just been broken for her to be in her circumstance, a mother who's lost a child this way with all these open questions. She wants, she needs, she deserves these answers. And God willing, we're going to get those answers for her.
Sandy, I want to go back to that GoFundMe. It really exploded. Did you anticipate it taking off like this, that people would see this and open up their wallets, because people apparently, I don't know about around the world, but across the country for sure, have seen this and contributed?
Yes, it's amazing. And I never thought it would get to where it's at now. And I just want to thank everybody for all the love and the support that they're giving us to get this job done and get it done properly.
I read on Twitter that you said, I think you told Mandy Matney that Stephen always complained about how expensive the books were for school, and that you may at some point want to start a scholarship fund in his memory. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, if there is any funds.
I think that's great. And I think what we're seeing here in these interviews, and now with the potential filing of a civil suit to get subpoena power and petitioning the court, we're seeing how lawyers can help victims so much, and how the right lawyers can help give victims voices that they need in situations that it can be very difficult. They can have no clue what to do, nowhere to turn, not know what to do. You get the $70,000. What do I do with this? How do you even get in contact with experts? Most experts aren't going to want to work for an individual person, even if they have the money, because, it gets a little bit difficult on what you're going to do. How are you going to do it? Are you going to bill it appropriately? Are they going to complain about, your work, or not understand how much you're billing? So to have a lawyer in there in place, dealing with victims and dealing with the experts and helping through this process and help talk to the media makes a big difference. And it's a big job to do for lawyers in situations like this, trying to help these victims.
Left, it will go towards a scholarship fund to help students with their materials or whatever they need help with.
And Sandy, what would you say to anybody watching this or listening to this out there who may have some information, and when I say information, I mean viable information?
If you know something, say something. You can remain anonymous. We just need answers. We want answers. If you know something, please say something.
And Ronnie, back to you. As far as the investigation with SLED goes, you're saying you want this exhumation. Has SLED ever brought this up, the possibility of exhuming Stephen's body?
Well, no, but in defense of SLED, an investigation was conducted, an autopsy was performed. There was a cause of death that was attributed. So I feel like when you read those examination papers, I'm not satisfied that they were fully satisfied with the answers, but those were the answers that they had. So we're not being critical of SLED. We're hoping to partner with SLED. We're hoping that if we get the exhumation done and we could show them new evidence, new things that they didn't have a chance to consider, that maybe it brings their resources back.
We do not want to be critical of SLED. We want to be partners with SLED. We want to help SLED. They need SLED at this point. They need SLED to help them do the investigation and potentially charge a crime in this case. So they are not going to besmirch SLED and be critical of SLED at this point. I'll be interested to see if that changes, if they, the rubber meets the road and they butt heads with SLED on where this goes, and they think it's pointing in a certain direction, but SLED might not think there's enough. We'll see.
Back into play, and that they're reinvigorated into this investigation. So this is not us trying to end run SLED. This is not a criticism of SLED. What we really want is a partnership with SLED. We want them back involved in the investigation, and we hope that the hook that gets them there is an independent autopsy from someone of national reputation who's done this before, who can tell us what really happened to Stephen.
Ronnie, do you expect to have access to evidence in this case? In particular, the clothing of Stephen that had some trace evidence on it, possibly some blue paint flecks. Do you expect to be able to get access to things like that so there can be some independent testing done?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that evidence currently resides. If it's still in the possession of SLED, then it's going to be discretionary with them whether they share that with us. And Eric had mentioned this at the press conference. We'd like a two-way street on this. Even if it's just a one-way street, you can rest assured that we will be sharing with them. We hope in the spirit of partnership that they share back with us. But every question will be asked.
Clearly an angle here from Bland Richter. They want to work with SLED. They want to get information SLED has. They want to get evidence SLED has. They want to have their experts test it. They want this to be a two-way street. But even if it's just a one-way street, they are going to share every single thing they get with SLED. And again, that is a big point. When a lawyer represents a victim and gets law enforcement involved, you want to share everything you have with law enforcement so that they can make the proper steps, proper arrests, proper investigation, whatever it may be, they can do it properly based on the information you have. If you have, many times you might be surprised, private lawyers can get more information and find more things than law enforcement can sometimes. And when that happens, you as the private lawyer want to share that information with law enforcement so they can take it and do things only law enforcement can do.
Through this investigation, I can assure you that. I do want to speak real quick to the money, because I know it's a very legitimate question for people to ask. We are donating our time towards this cause. I can tell you,
we are donating our time toward this cause, so no fees, not even a contingency fee is what that says to me. So even if they do collect money in a civil suit, it sounds like they are not going to take a fee on it. So they are donating their time. It's very admirable.
We met Sandy, and we've known her now for years. I have never heard her one time say she wanted $1. I've only heard her say she wants answers. And so that is the sole goal of this investigation, is to get her those answers that she deserves.
And Sandy, you know, being a mom, having to get up every day and go about your life without having those answers, incredibly painful, I'm sure.
It is, yeah, very painful. But I survived through my grandchildren. They keep me laughing. They remind me of him. So
yeah,
I can just see him in them.
Yeah, the grandkids are the best. I hear. I'm not at that point yet, but I can only imagine that they provide you a lot of joy and a lot of comfort. And I just wanted to wrap up, Sandy, by talking about SLED. You know, when I spoke with you by phone, you said that they do keep you up to date, but obviously it's an open investigation and there's not much that they can tell you.
Yes, and I mean they're working. It's just they're limited on what they can share right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it would interfere in their case. And I'm patient. I've been patient, and I can wait.
Well, let's hope you don't have to wait too much longer. Ronnie Richter of Bland Richter and Sandy Smith, thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Throughout the investigation.
All right. So that is the point of view from the lawyers representing the Smith family and from Stephen Smith's mom. They want answers. They're pushing forward. They've got lawyers. They've got money. They're going to have experts. They're petitioning the court. This thing is not going away. Now, what does Buster Murdaugh, a lot of people who have connected him to Stephen Smith and this case, I don't know how fair that is. I don't know how right it is. I don't know how wrong it is. It's a lot of speculation and a lot of theories at this point. Bland Richter have not come out and said that they think it's Buster Murdaugh. So we will see if those connections are ever made. But he did feel it necessary to come out and make a statement a few days ago. And here's what Buster Murdaugh had to say. I have tried my best to ignore the vicious rumors about my involvement in Stephen Smith's tragic death that continue to be published in the media as I grieve over the brutal murders of my mother and brother. I love them so much and miss them terribly. I've also seen other statements and rumors that he is denying any involvement in Stephen Smith's death and that he also is grieving the incarceration of his father. So it is a brutally sad time for Buster Murdaugh at this point. We will see if any of the evidence points towards him in this case. But as we sit right now, Stephen Smith's family wants answers. Bland Richter is on the case. They have money to hire experts and petition the court and do what they need to do to get some of those answers. So we will follow this case as long as there's interest. And if you do have interest, hit that like button, please. The more likes we get, the more interest you guys have in the content, the more time I'll spend digging in and trying to explain it and add my analysis to it and some angles that lawyers who represent victims, which is what I do, and what effect they can have on the process like the lawyers are in this case. So I appreciate everybody that joined me. Hopefully you guys can let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about this case and where you think the evidence may point. But for now, that's all I've got. Until next time. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a pase you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.